The crystal vase shattered against the marble floor, spraying water and white orchids across expensive Italian tile. Maya Chun stood frozen in the doorway of the penthouse study, her cleaning cart rattling as her hands trembled. Across the room, Victoria Ashford Fiancée to tech billionaire Marcus Calloway smiled coldly, her emerald eyes gleaming with calculated cruelty. "Clean it up," Victoria said softly, her voice dripping with venom. "And when you're done, clean the entire East Wing again." I found dust on the chandelier. Maya's jaw tightened. She had been working at the Calloway estate for only 3 days, but she already understood what everyone had warned her about. Victoria Ashford destroyed people for sport. Maya Rodriguez had taken the housekeeping position at the Calloway estate out of desperation, not ambition. At 28, she was drowning in medical debt from her mother's cancer treatment, working 3 jobs just to keep creditors from seizing their modest apartment. When the employment agency called about a live-in position at one of Boston's most prestigious estates, offering triple her current wages, Maya knew she had no choice but to accept. The Calloway estate sprawled across 12 acres in Brookline, a fortress of old money and new technology. Marcus Calloway had made his billions in artificial intelligence and quantum computing, building an empire that rivaled the tech giants of Silicon Valley. He was known as a generous philanthropist, a brilliant innovator, a quiet man who valued intelligence and integrity above all else. His fiancée, Victoria Ashford, was known for something else entirely. "She goes through staff like tissues," Rosa Mendez, the head housekeeper, had warned Maya during orientation. Rosa was in her 50s, with tired eyes that had seen too much. "I've worked here for 15 years, back when Mr. Calloway's late wife was alive. Mrs. Calloway was kind, gracious. But Miss Ashford—" Rosa's voice dropped to a whisper. "She's cruel in ways that don't leave bruises. She destroys people psychologically, makes them quit before Mr. Calloway even realizes there's a problem." Maya had listened to the warnings, but assumed she could handle anything. She had survived her father's abandonment, her mother's illness, working overnight shifts while finishing her business degree online. How bad could one wealthy woman be? She learned the answer on her first day. Victoria had demanded that Maya re-clean a guest bathroom 4 times, finding imaginary flaws each time. She had criticized Maya's uniform, her posture, her accent, her very existence. By lunchtime, 2 other new hires had quit in tears. By dinner, a third had been fired for incompetence after Victoria claimed to find a fingerprint on a wine glass. Maya had stayed. She needed this job too badly to let pride get in the way. But standing in the study, staring at the broken vase and Victoria's smug expression, Maya felt something shift inside her. "Is there a problem?" Victoria asked, her tone deceptively pleasant. She was beautiful in the way fashion magazines celebrated, tall, slender, with platinum blonde hair styled in perfect waves. Her designer dress probably cost more than Maya's entire year's rent. "You seem hesitant to follow instructions." Maya swallowed her anger and knelt to pick up the broken glass, carefully gathering pieces into her gloved hands. "No, ma'am." "No problem." "Good." Victoria walked closer, her heels clicking against the marble like a countdown. "Because I'd hate to think you were one of those people who think they're too good for honest work. Who think that because Mr. Calloway is generous, they can slack off and collect a paycheck." The accusation was absurd and insulting, but Maya kept her face neutral. She had learned in her previous jobs that responding to deliberate provocation only made things worse. Stay invisible. Stay silent. Survive. Victoria crouched down, bringing her face level with Maya's. "I know about you," she said quietly, her voice so soft that no one passing in the hallway would hear. "I know about your mother's illness. I know about your debts. I know you're desperate." She paused, letting the words sink in like poison. Which means you'll do exactly what I say when I say it, without question. Because if you don't, I'll make sure you're fired so fast your head will spin. Maya's hand stilled on a piece of glass. She looked directly into Victoria's eyes for the first time, and what she saw there was chilling. Not just cruelty, but pleasure in that cruelty. Victoria enjoyed this, enjoyed having power over people who couldn't fight back. Do we understand each other? Victoria asked. Maya nodded slowly, not trusting herself to speak. Wonderful. Victoria stood gracefully, smoothing her dress. When you're finished here, report to the kitchen. I've decided we're having a dinner party tonight. 20 guests. I'll need you to serve. She walked away, leaving Maya alone with the broken glass and the realization that the next few months were going to be a war of attrition. The dinner party was a nightmare, orchestrated with surgical precision. Victoria had given Maya less than 4 hours' notice, ensuring she would be unprepared and overwhelmed. 20 wealthy guests filled the formal dining room, their conversations flowing as easily as the expensive wine. Maya poured with shaking hands. Marcus Calloway sat at the head of the table, charming and engaged, asking thoughtful questions about his guests' work and families. He was in his early 40s, distinguished with silver threading through his dark hair, and he radiated the kind of quiet confidence that came from genuine achievement rather than inherited wealth. Maya watched him throughout the evening, trying to understand how such an apparently kind man could be engaged to someone like Victoria. But the answer became clear as the night progressed. Marcus rarely saw Victoria's true nature. She transformed in his presence, becoming warm and gracious, laughing at jokes and offering compliments. The mask was perfect. It slipped only when Marcus wasn't looking. You spilled wine on my dress, Victoria hissed at Maya in the kitchen, even though Maya had done no such thing. You're clumsy and incompetent. If it weren't for Mr. Calloway's insistence on giving opportunities to people like you, you'd be unemployable. Rosa, preparing dessert plates, shot Maya a sympathetic look but said nothing. Speaking up would only make things worse for both of them. Maya apologized mechanically and returned to the dining room, where Victoria was now describing her philanthropic work with homeless shelters, her voice full of compassion and concern. The guests praised her generosity. Marcus beamed with pride. Later that night, after the guests had left and the kitchen was finally clean, Maya collapsed in her small staff room. Her feet ached, her back screamed in protest, and her mind churned with exhaustion and frustration. She pulled out her phone and looked at a photo of her mother, taken before the cancer diagnosis, before everything fell apart. "I can do this," Maya whispered to the photo. "I can survive anything for you." But even as she said it, she wondered how much more she could endure before something inside her broke completely. The breaking point came 2 weeks later. On a rainy Thursday afternoon, Maya was cleaning the library, a magnificent room with floor-to-ceiling bookshelves and leather furniture that smelled of old paper and expensive cologne, when she overheard a conversation she wasn't meant to hear. Victoria was on her phone in the adjacent study, her voice carrying through the partially open door. Maya should have announced her presence, should have made noise to indicate someone was nearby. But something in Victoria's tone made her freeze and listen instead. "The wedding is in 6 weeks, Victoria said, her voice sharp and businesslike, completely different from her usual affected sweetness. "Once I'm legally married to Marcus, we can move forward with phase 2. His estate planning documents give me power of attorney if he's ever incapacitated. All we need is the right medical emergency at the right time." Maya's blood ran cold. She pressed herself against the bookshelf, barely breathing. "Don't be squeamish, David," Victoria continued. "Marcus is 52 with a family history of heart disease. A minor cardiac event wouldn't raise suspicions, especially with his stress levels. And once I have control of his medical decisions and his finances." She laughed, a sound devoid of warmth. "Well, let's just say accidents happen in hospitals all the time. Medication errors, complications. You're a doctor, you know how easy it is to make things look natural." Maya's hands began to shake. This wasn't just cruelty or manipulation. This was conspiracy to commit murder. "Callaway Industries is worth $18 billion, Victoria said. "I'll be his grieving widow, the perfect victim who'll inherit everything. The prenup only matters if we divorce, not if he dies. And you, my darling, will get your $10 million as promised. Plus whatever else you want when I'm in control." The man on the other end, David, said something. Maya couldn't hear. Victoria's response was ice cold. "I don't care if it seems rushed. I've been playing the devoted fiancée for 18 months. I'm tired of pretending. 6 weeks until the wedding, then 2 months maximum until Marcus has his unfortunate accident. By summer, we'll be free and unbelievably rich." Maya stood in the library long after Victoria ended the call and left the study, her mind racing. Every instinct screamed at her to run, to quit immediately, to distance herself from this nightmare before she became collateral damage. She could find another job, could work 4 jobs if necessary, could sell everything she owned. But then she thought about Marcus Callaway. She had only spoken to him directly a handful of times, brief exchanges when he thanked her for her work or asked if she needed anything. But she had observed him enough to know he was genuinely kind. He donated millions to cancer research and children's hospitals. He paid his staff generously and treated them with respect. He had personally increased Rosa's salary when he learned about her grandson's medical needs. Marcus Callaway was a good man who had no idea he was engaged to his own murderer. Maya pulled out her phone with trembling hands. She could call the police, but what would she tell them? She had no proof, just an overheard conversation. Victoria would deny everything. Marcus would probably defend his fiancée. Maya would be fired and branded as a troublemaker trying to sabotage her employer's relationship. No, she needed evidence. Real, undeniable evidence that would protect Marcus and expose Victoria's true nature. That evening, Maya made a decision that terrified her. She would stay at the estate. She would continue enduring Victoria's cruelty, and she would gather proof of the conspiracy, documenting everything until she had enough to take to the authorities. It was dangerous and possibly illegal. If Victoria discovered what Maya was doing, the consequences could be severe. But Maya thought about her own mother, about how devastated Maya would have been if someone had plotted to end her life, and she knew she couldn't walk away. She created a new email account under a fake name. She started recording conversations on her phone whenever Victoria was nearby. She began photographing documents left carelessly on desks and counters. And she waited for Victoria to make a mistake that would reveal enough to save Marcus Callaway's life. The evidence accumulated slowly over the next 3 weeks. Maya recorded several more phone calls between Victoria and David Chun, a physician at Boston General Hospital who apparently had his own massive gambling debts and was desperate enough to participate in murder for money. Maya learned that Victoria had been researching Marcus's family medical history, looking for hereditary conditions she could exploit. She discovered that Victoria had already purchased a beach house in the Cayman Islands under a shell company, preparing her escape route. She found drafts of social media posts Victoria had pre-written about her devastating grief over Marcus's future death. But the most damning evidence came from Victoria's personal laptop, which she left open one afternoon while taking a phone call in another room. Maya had been cleaning Victoria's private suite when she saw the screen displaying emails between Victoria and someone named Connor Ashford, Victoria's brother. Maya eventually learned, discussing the inheritance timeline and investment. Strategies for Victoria's future wealth. Maya photographed everything. Her hands shaking so badly she had to brace her phone against the desk to keep the images clear. She created encrypted backups of all her evidence, storing copies in multiple cloud accounts in case her phone was discovered. What Maya didn't anticipate was that Victoria was smarter than she appeared. One evening, as Maya was serving dinner, Victoria looked at her with an expression of cold calculation. "Maya, I've been thinking about your mother's cancer treatment. You mentioned she needs an experimental therapy that costs $60,000, correct?" Maya froze, a water pitcher suspended in her hand. She had never mentioned her mother's situation to Victoria. She had barely mentioned it to Rosa. "I've decided to pay for her treatment," Victoria continued, her smile pleasant but her eyes predatory. "All of it. Consider it a personal gift from me to you for your dedicated service." The room went silent. Marcus looked surprised and pleased. The other dinner guests, Victoria's socialite friends, murmured approvingly about her generosity. Maya understood immediately what was happening. This wasn't kindness. This was a trap. Victoria was buying her silence, making sure Maya would never dare expose what she knew. Maya stood in the dining room, the water pitcher still in her hand, facing the most difficult decision of her life. Accepting Victoria's offer would save her mother. Refusing it would mean watching her mother suffer while Maya struggled with debts she could never repay. But accepting would also mean becoming complicit in murder. It would mean allowing Marcus Calloway to die because Maya had been too weak to fight back. The entire room waited for her response. Victoria's smile never wavered, confident in her power, certain that Maya would take the money and disappear into grateful silence. Maya set down the pitcher carefully. When she spoke, her voice was steady despite the terror coursing through her veins. "Thank you for the generous offer, Miss Ashford, but I can't accept." She turned to Marcus, her heart pounding. "Mr. Calloway, I need to speak with you privately." "It's urgent." Victoria's composure cracked for just a moment, a flash of rage in her eyes, before the pleasant mask returned. "That's quite inappropriate, Maya. We're in the middle of dinner with guests." "It's about your safety, sir," Maya said, looking directly at Marcus. "There are things you need to know about your upcoming wedding, and about the plans being made for after it." The room erupted. Victoria stood abruptly, her chair scraping against the floor. "This is absurd. Marcus, this woman is clearly having some kind of breakdown. I suggest we call security." "I have recordings," Maya said, louder now, her voice cutting through Victoria's protests. "Phone conversations discussing how you're planning to kill Mr. Calloway after the wedding to inherit his estate. I have emails between you and Dr. David Chun about medication protocols and cardiac events. I have financial documents showing you've already purchased property in the Cayman Islands under a false name." Marcus had gone pale. He raised a hand, silencing Victoria's sputtering denials. "Show me," he said quietly. Maya pulled out her phone, her hands shaking but determined. She had crossed the point of no return. Either she would save Marcus's life, or she would lose everything trying. But looking at Victoria's furious expression, Maya realized she had already won the only victory that mattered. She had refused to be bought. The investigation that followed moved swiftly. Marcus contacted his personal attorney within the hour, who in turn contacted the FBI. Maya's evidence was handed over to federal investigators, who confirmed its authenticity and launched a full criminal probe into Victoria Ashford and Dr. David Chun. Victoria was arrested within 48 hours, charged with conspiracy to commit murder and fraud. David Chun was arrested simultaneously at the hospital. The news exploded across Boston's social circles and eventually national media. A Calais, beloved tech billionaire nearly murdered by his gold-digging fiancée, saved by an observant housekeeper who risked everything to do the right thing. Marcus called Maya into his study 3 days after Victoria's arrest. She entered nervously, still half expecting to be fired despite having saved his life. "I owe you more than I can ever repay," Marcus said simply. "You could have taken Victoria's money and said nothing. Most people would have. But you chose integrity over survival." "I couldn't let her hurt you, sir," Maya said. "You're a good person. You didn't deserve what she was planning." Marcus nodded slowly, his eyes bright with emotion. "Your mother's treatment will be fully funded. Not as a payment, but as a gift with no strings attached. Additionally, I'd like to offer you a position as my executive assistant. The salary is substantial, and the work will be challenging, but I need people I can trust around me. People with courage and moral clarity." Maya felt tears spilling down her cheeks. "Thank you. I don't know what to say. Say you'll consider it." 6 months later, Maya sat in her new office overlooking Boston Harbor, reviewing contracts for one of Marcus's charitable foundations. Her mother was in remission, responding well to the experimental treatment. Rosa had been promoted to a state director, and Maya had discovered that standing up for what was right, even when it cost everything, was the only way to truly live with yourself. She thought about Victoria sometimes, awaiting trial in a federal facility, and felt no satisfaction in her downfall, only sadness that someone had chosen greed and cruelty over humanity. But mostly, Maya thought about the lesson she had learned, that courage isn't the absence of fear. It's choosing to act despite being terrified. And sometimes, one person's refusal to stay silent can change everything. The phone on her desk rang. Marcus's voice came through. "Maya, I have someone I'd like you to meet. A young woman who just applied for a housekeeping position. She reminds me of you, determined, intelligent, working multiple jobs to support her family. I thought you might want to interview her yourself." Maya smiled, understanding what Marcus was really saying. He was giving her the opportunity to be the person she had needed when she first arrived at the estate. Someone who would recognize potential. Someone who would offer protection instead of exploitation. "Send her up," Maya said. "I'd be honored to meet her." She stood and walked to the window, looking out at the city where she had once been invisible and powerless. Now she had a voice, a purpose, and the ability to help others find theirs. And that, Maya realized, was worth more than any amount of money Victoria Ashford could have offered.